Hello and welcome, and thank you for visiting the Foodics Accounting platform. Today in this tutorial I would like to talk about point of sales transactions, invoices and credit notes. During this tutorial there will be a considerable amount of movement through this left margin here, and also there will be considerable amounts of changing of the screen. So I would ask the user to please bear with me on this. And furthermore, there may be some moments of prolonged silence, but that is just because I will be analysing data and considering which screen to move to next. So, point of sales transactions. The transaction process syncs all the sales automatically to the accounting system. To view the sales synced from the point of sales, I would go across to this margin and drop down to point of sales transactions. The following list shows all sales at the end of the day with one invoice for each branch, listing the total sales for the day. All payment methods will be displayed separately for each branch. And I'd like to show an example, so I will choose 0056. As we can see here, the total sales are 1150 reals, which is made up of Mardar and Jarhez. There is a point here that I would like to make, and that is if the user wants to change payment methods due to an error, this can be changed by clicking on less payment, which I will do so. I would then go to this top line of commands and choose options, and then drop down to remove and redo. This pop-up prompt tells me that that transaction has been removed. I would now have to go back to point of sales transactions and back to 0056, and to receive that payment correctly I would choose from here where I want that to go to. For example, we will choose bank 251 and add. The prompt tells me that's been added successfully, and as we can see here, it has been correctly added. Furthermore, attachments can be added to the invoice via this small attachments box here. The attachment is dropped here, and the user will have options to print or send the transaction. Additionally, the system has a feature where journal entries are automatically created for all transactions, such as sales invoices. Once you approve a transaction, the option to print the journal will appear directly. For demonstration, I will go here. And depending on the operating system you are running, you will see the journal box here in the usual way. And for example, I will cancel at that point. You can also enter sales manually, such as business to business invoices. To create a sales invoice for a customer or business to business, I would go back across to this margin, down to invoices, choose New Invoice. There is various data boxes here which must be completed. So for example, I will do so. In this case here, if the customer is not a contact, I would add new contact, customer name, customer 3. The invoice number will be generated automatically by the program after saving and confirming the invoice. The issue date and time will be shown here, along with the due date. The reference is optional, for example, sales. Like so. The invoice details here. Like this. Like so. After creating the invoice, it can be sent to the customer, and once paid, it must be closed through the accounting system. For payment processes, I would go back to invoices here. And for example, I will choose 0038. The payment process box is here. The amount, date, and paid to. For example, Mordor, reference, sales, and add payment. The payment was successfully added, as we can see here. The invoice can also be paid partially. If the customer wants to pay part of the invoice and the remaining balance later, you can modify the automatic amount by deleting the amount and adding a partial payment. For example, I will go back. I would just like to demonstrate this. For example, I'll choose this invoice here. So I want to send a partial payment, so I will reduce send to bank 251. The prompt tells me it's been successfully added, and here we can see attachments can be added to the invoice from the upload section. Again, this small box here, and again through this top line here. The user can print or send the invoice. After approval, journal entries for all invoices are automatically created by the system. Journal entries can be viewed for each invoice from the Print Journal option here. And again, you will, depending on your operating system, if it's Windows, you will likely see the full window here with the journal ready to print. I would now like to talk about credit notes and returns. For returns, we go back to the margin, sales, and choose invoices here. Along the top line we have credit notes, and here we would choose a new credit note. The data would be here, so I will choose customer 3, like so. Status is draft. Sales, supply date. Credit note reason, cancel order. Again, we would complete the data. And we can approve or save this credit note. Furthermore, if the invoice is awaiting payment, you can make a return via invoice options and choose add credit note, which I will give an example of now. So along this top line here we have all, draft, awaiting approval, and awaiting payment. So awaiting payment, I will choose this invoice here. Along the top line here at the end we have invoice options, and I can choose to add credit note. We have some data to complete, so for example, and then again we have an option to approve or save. So that is a credit note for an invoice that is awaiting payment. To make a return in the same quarter, you must specify the return date with the same invoice date and record the return data with the same invoice data, writing the invoice number in the reference box. So here, for example, would be the invoice number. And again, we can approve or save this credit note. So I hope this tutorial has been of some assistance to you, and I would like to thank you for your attention.